How do you know if someone's gay?
Because they say they are?
Perfect response. Not according to Wikihow, though.
Oh.
This Wikihow article is titled, How to Discreetly Find Out If Someone You Know is Gay.
All right.
First one, observing their behavior. Listen to how they comment on other people's appearances. For example, your guy friend might say things like, did you see that guy's abs? Or, he looks great in a suit.
Yeah, okay.
Which, I'm sorry, if you say he looks good in a suit and you're a man, I'm sorry, you're gay now.
I guess it means you're gay. Oh, boy.
Consider the person's past relationships and crushes. That makes sense to me.
Yep.
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah. Notice if they use they when talking about dates or crushes.
Now we're in, I'm doing detective work. This is discreetly finding out if someone is closeted and gay.
Yeah, which you shouldn't be doing.
Which you should not be doing.
But also, people use they for their partners all the time.
Yeah.
Consider if they never talk about their love life. None of your fucking business.
And so now it's find out if somebody's gay in an environment where people who are gay are being repressed.
Exactly.
I mean, they are always, but
Always.
specifically in this example.
This one is probably the best, though, which is avoid making assumptions based on their looks, style, or voice.
Right.
For example, a guy can paint his fingernails and not be gay. Similarly, a girl can prefer short hair or a short haircut and not be a lesbian. Perfect. That one's actually a good one. Good job, WikiHow. But let me move on to method 3, which is asking them on a date.
Yes, discreet. That's the most discreet way I could possibly.
What?
Man, if you're going that way, you might as well just be like, hey, do you want to make out? What are you doing?
Discreetly, I think this guy might be gay, and I want to date them. Ask them to go out as friends if you're interested in dating them. You're likely eager to get to know them as a partner, so asking them to hang out as friends might sound like a step backward. However, it's actually a great way to get to know them and find out if they're open to dating.
Okay, see, I like that better. They actually got there with that a little bit.
They
so
did.
I'm
They
okay.
did a little bit. Yeah.
Close.
But
I discreetly wanted to find out if you were gay, so I proposed to you. I just...
John, I know we're work acquaintances, but I've been interested in you, and I say how your suit looks nice on you all the time.
All the time I tell you it, and you didn't even recognize that I was gay.
Here's what it has recommendations for things that you should do. Say, would you like to play mini golf this Friday with me?
My favorite gay euphemism. Hey, would you like to go play some mini golf? How many strokes until you get it in the hole?
Oh my god. Get to know them by spending more time with them. Say things like, I've known I've liked girls since I was 12 and developed a crush on a girl in my dance class. Have you ever had a crush on a girl? Which this picture is of two presumably cisgender men running side by side with each other.
Again, so discreet. Excuse me, bro. Have you ever had a crush on a woman?
Bro, I had this crush on a girl when I was 12. Have you ever had a crush on a lady?
Hey, you know what? This is the kind of conversation I do want hetero cis men to try to have. That shouldn't be a weird thing.
No, it shouldn't be. If you phrase it like that, maybe a little bit weird.
Yeah, definitely strange.
The last step in this is to cope with rejection by celebrating yourself and connecting with friends, which I honestly think is a very good way to put this. If you think that you might be gay and you're actually trying to find out if you're gay discreetly, and you get rejected by this bro dude who you're running with, cope with it and connect with your friends.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to put yourself out there again. Go out and meet some new people. Soon you'll find someone else who catches your eye and who you can go and stroke mini golf with before you put it in the hole.
Think we can leave it at that.
transgender person.
And I'm Cam, your dad.
And this is The Transgenda, a podcast chronicling my transition.
And a cisgender man learning how to support it. When we're recording this, we are getting towards the end of 2022.
Woo!
A wild year for trans rights and
It's
for
fucking crazy.
public discourse. It just shows how divided as a country we are, and where maybe some more conservative leading-minded people have really taken this as a big culture war that they want to have.
I will say it has been a pretty fucking crazy year for us as well, but I think so far it's ending pretty strongly. This is the first episode we're recording post-surgery for me.
Yay!
Yay! And we've just been so incredibly thankful and amazed by the support that you've given us in the last year here.
100%. Here's what I want to do. I hate giving daylight to any bigot, but for today's topic, I thought it would be a good idea to do what I'm going to call the 2022 Transphobic Celebrity Roundup.
Woo!
Maybe we'll make this an annual thing and put transphobic celebrities on our shit list here. So
Yes.
here's my criteria. Oh, go ahead.
Here's the thing. I don't believe in shitting on any person unless they're a public figure and they are already getting shit on a little bit. Just be like, hey, maybe don't do that thing. I guess
Maybe
it's not
don't
really
do that.
shitting on anyone. Just tell them, pressure them, be like, hey, maybe don't say that transphobic shit anymore. Some of these people.
So that's exactly where I think I wanted to find 3 well-known celebrities. My criteria really was they are actively and unapologetically working against trans rights. Like, that's where I really wanted to go. So there's a lot of celebrities that are fine lines here, but number 1 for this year, and I'd say the past 3, is our good friend J.K. Rowling.
No, I'm sorry. You can't even jokingly say we're a good friend. J.K. Rowling, you are not welcome on our show, and you
Nope.
are not a friend of the show. Please stop your transphobic shit.
What I would say is she's definitely the most tweeted about of all the people on this list. So just a reminder of how she got to be on the top of this list. The controversy started when Rowling was publicly supporting Maya Forstater, who was a researcher who lost her job because she stated that people cannot change their biological sex, while also implying that her research shows that there's no difference between biology and gender.
Which is just wrong. Maya Forstater is just a wrong human being who published fake data.
Incorrect and incorrect science. So after getting called out for it, Rowling wrote a lengthy and somewhat sympathetic explanation of her feelings. And I say somewhat sympathetic because she talked about trauma that she experienced from abuse that she received from men. The trouble is, in that same breath, she correlated her fear of men as about them posing as women in women's spaces, which is a common conservative talking point against trans people that has no data to back it up.
No, it doesn't. There's nothing true about men pretending to be women to get into women's spaces.
Perverts are going to get in there. If they want to get
Yeah.
into women's spaces, they're going to do that, and not by pretending that they're trans.
I'm sorry. This is an argument that I hear all the time, and my thought process is I could just walk into the men's restroom if I wanted, and what's gonna happen? Nothing. Like, people do that all the time.
Yes.
What do you mean? I'm not gonna transition socially to be accepted, quote unquote, in the women's bathroom to what? Like, be a pervert? No,
That
I'm
seems
gonna
like
pee.
an awful lot of work for going into a space with stalls.
Like, I feel like a lesbian in a locker room when this happens, where it's like, you just stare at the floor. You're like,
right.
that's a good floor. I'm gonna stare at that now.
I really like that analogy. So a little more about Rowling. After she received some death threats, she has claimed, and then accused trans folks of, which she has a publicly available address. You can find it on any tour of the city that she lives in, but she claimed that she was being doxxed. And so her response to that was to just double down and began sharing more transphobic views, wrote a book that basically says that it's trans people bullying the rest of society, and has been resharing a lot of anti-trans celebrities and organizations like LGB. The last thing I want... Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, this is where I need to go out on the record and state it is not okay to dox people. It is not okay
No.
to send death threats to people. I'm not saying that what J.K. Rowling has been through is fake or anything like that. But I am going to say if this is happening to the same degree that she is stating it is, that is completely unacceptable. One death threat is unacceptable. J.K. Rowling is also a public figure. And she is using her public figure status as a way to target trans rights. That is not okay. Death threats are not okay. She's also not okay.
She received death threats from super Christian conservatives about Harry Potter and that she was a Satanist. And I don't remember her calling out Christianity.
No, I don't remember her doing that either. Or starting with the ultra destroy the church people who are like, oh, no, I don't remember that. I remember her being like, oh, Harry Potter is not satanic. It's totally Christian. Just look at Harry. Fuck.
Final thing I'll tell you, and I don't know if this might be news for you because this literally has just come up in the last couple of days, but Rowling just founded a rape crisis support center in Edinburgh. It's called Beera's Place, I think.
Edinburgh?
What's that?
Edinburgh?
And it's in Edinburgh. No, Beera's Place is the name of the shelter.
Gotcha. Okay.
Edinburgh is the name of the city, yes, for sure. So the problem is that it has become pretty evident that the reason that she did this is because she is creating a exclusive to biological women, in quotation marks.
She is creating a space for cisgender women.
Exactly.
Exclusively.
Exclusively.
Is fine. I'm not going to even say that she shouldn't do that or anything. If that's where she wants to put her money to, cool. I say more shelters to protect women is always a good thing.
Absolutely.
I don't agree that it should be exclusive to cisgender women because as a trans woman who has suffered a lot of abuse in my life, I also need shelters. Trans women also need shelters.
Yes. So the other rape crisis center that's in Edinburgh is currently run by a trans woman. And so that may have something to do with why this other shelter is being popped up. And only to point out that this is certainly an anti-trans center, that it's purposely that way.
This is not something to benefit cisgender women. This is to target and attack transgender people.
Absolutely.
Especially transgender women. I agree in shelters. I agree that these are good things. And I will not say that J.K. Rowling needs to stop her trying to support people who are in terrible situations.
Yes.
But she's not doing it because of that reason, I assure you. She's doing it to attack trans people and trans rights.
We can protect women, the overarching umbrella, and just that's what we need to be doing as a society. So the good news is that we're sided with by the young cast of Harry Potter. There were a few of the older cast who came out in support of Rowling's views, but Daniel Radcliffe himself, of course, Emma Watson, who has now really taken this as a mantle that she wants to not just say that she supports the trans community, but actually is taking action now to
Emma
work against this.
You are a fucking queen. I love you. If you listen to our podcast, please come on our show. I would love to pick your brain because you are an amazing human being.
That would be a great interview.
Daniel Radcliffe, you're also welcome. Any of the trans supportive cast, you're welcome.
Yeah.
If you happen to listen to our podcast.
We're big fans, for sure.
Yeah, I did hear about this, though, and Daniel Radcliffe coming out was honestly a little bit of a surprise to me, because, I don't know, he just seemed in this gray area for the last couple years, where, like, I hadn't really heard from him on much of anything here, and so him coming out in support of trans people, I was like, oh, cool, thank you, Daniel, that's really cool. Yeah, I think the actor who played Ron Weasley, I can't remember his name for the life of me, I'm so sorry.
Oh my gosh, yeah, just totally fell out of... Rupert? No?
Rupert something.
We gotta get this. Rupert Grint.
I think Rupert Grint has also said some very trans supportive things. So, like, the main trio is supportive of trans rights, and that's amazing to me.
Really appreciate that. Especially, there's two things, I think, and then I want to move on to the rest of the list here, but I think she had the meatiest year of transphobia out of all these people. What I will say is that every other celebrity on this list, including our honorable mentions, have all received public support from J.K. Rowling, so I do not believe there's any argument that she can make that she's not being transphobic. And then the other thing I'll say is that the very cool looking and very enticing Hogwarts game is about to be released here. And we, I think, take a view that it's really hard to separate the artist from the art when the artist is going to continue to make all kinds of money off of the property and support transphobia. So I won't be purchasing Hogwarts despite my interest in it, just like we boycotted Cyberpunk 2022, even though it was something that we were really excited about, because we don't need to give money. Thank you. Yes, 2072. We don't need to put our money towards causes or organizations that believe that it's okay to make fun of trans people or to be transphobic.
Exactly. I had a friend, and I don't want to, I think we're towing a legal gray line here, but I had a friend who said when J.K. Rowling posted her book about the person who would go around as a man who would go around dressed as a woman to kill his victims, they were like, why don't you just pirate it and read it? Like, fuck, you're reading and you're able to get the content and be able to critique it without giving money to the artist. And
Right.
legally,
I think we're okay to talk about it as long as we don't tell people how to do it.
legally, I'm not endorsing piracy, but I think that if you do not want to support the artist and you want to support the art, piracy is a way to go about that.
Or that I think maybe a better way would be go support your used bookstore, your local used bookstore.
Yes.
They'll make the money off of that used copy of Harry Potter or whatever it is
Or
that you want to purchase.
The library.
Or go to the library. We love the library.
Libraries are great. There are so many other legal ways to do it. I just thought the piracy thing was really funny.
I love it. Okay, getting into our next couple here, just rattling it off. Dave Chappelle is number 2 on our list.
One of our most talked about topics this year.
we definitely have spent a lot of time. He's come up so many times because it just keeps hitting the news over and over again. So he said some transphobic shit in one of his specials. He got publicly ridiculed for it and then decided to double down. And what has he done but packed arenas ever since with like-minded bigots? I want to know who those people are. We need to run a crowd survey. So just like I was talking about the art and its artist, there's another thing that Anna and I believe in that's important with the Dave Chappelle story, and that's that we're not comedians, like we don't state that, but we think this is a funny comedy podcast, and we all came into this right away saying we never punch down on people. We never use our privilege to exploit someone else or a disadvantaged population in search of a joke. Like that just... It can't happen.
I think personally and professionally, we have been extremely careful in trying to not only not punch down, but elevate BIPOC individuals and other individuals who we are not a part of their communities. Yes. And the jokes that we make are about things that we feel like we can joke about, making fun of white people, making fun of people who are bigots. We never want to punch down and target people for things that we can't make fun of. We rarely even make fun of transgender people because...
We let transgender people make fun of themselves and then share that because it feels a little better.
Honestly, being queer, being transgender is funny, but you can't be a cisgender person, you can't be a straight person and start making jokes about us because we, 1, are going to make way better jokes than you. And 2, it's not your place.
Right.
No. We really support people who are underneath us, and we want to support and elevate everyone to the same level.
So the flip side of that is what Chappelle has decided to do, which is say things like feminists should look like frumpy dykes.
Horrible.
Sorry if that's a triggering word. Saying rapper DaBaby's tirade about HIV positive people, he called them nasty and junkies. Ugh. And then Chappelle said that it punched the LGBTQ community right in the AIDS, which is really a fucked up thing to say. It just in and of itself is an absolutely bizarre and terrible thing to say. It's not funny.
Does he think it's funny? Does he think that he is funny? Because he's not. The things he says are funny to make fun of, but not funny themselves.
Yes. So then, of course, from the trans perspective here in his Netflix special, The Closer, which continues to be available despite all of the really horrific and bigoted things he said.
Yeah, hey, Netflix, fuck you. Take off this transphobic shit. And while we're at it, Spotify, do the same.
Yeah.
Come on.
You're on the list. He compared trans genitals to plant-based meat substitutes, which could be a funny joke from a trans person, but is a really bigoted, terrible joke from a cis dude. Said he could murder somebody and then claim to be a woman so that he could get a soft sentence. We actually know that research shows that's absolutely the opposite case, that trans women are treated far worse in prison.
Yes, I have read so many stories about trans women who have been treated far worse. And also, being trans has never, ever made anyone go lighter on me. Has never, ever been like I'm playing the trans card. Like, that never happens. Everybody either treats you the exact same way, but respects you, or you put yourself on hardcore mode is what you did.
You have to.
No, that's not how it works.
It's not. Well, and again, going back to your earlier point about people don't just transition so that they can get some kind of access to spaces that they weren't supposed. It's just not. You can't make that correlation. Why would you put yourself through so much other kinds of oppression just to have that weird one thing? I don't understand people's thoughts on that.
Media, you can quote me on this, but you need to take the whole fucking quote here. Trans people do not transition for perks. We
Right.
transition to feel better about our fucking selves.
That one single perk, the only one, and that's trying to find gender euphoria. That's the last place a thing I would say is he said that about people who criticize his transphobic speech, that we are instruments of oppression, which again is just totally the opposite.
Listen. No. I'm sorry. Comedians get a lot of leeway, and I think they deserve to get some leeway. They can make jokes that might be offensive if they are punching up or if they are punching equal. I think can be a little bit iffy, but I think if they're punching equal, some of those jokes can be okay. That does not mean that they are oppressed, though. I'm sorry, comedian. You make shitloads of money. You have 2 Netflix specials, Dave Chappelle. You are not oppressed. You are not the one.
You have a platform
yeah.
to fight against oppression. And I think that's way funnier than continuing
Talk
to
about your struggles
people.
as a black man and about the oppression that you feel that way. Because that would be way fucking funnier than punching down at trans people.
Yeah.
I would listen to you then.
Punch up at cisgender white men.
Honestly.
We need it. I'm totally here for it. But bring it my way, because I think we've had privilege long enough. Circling back to Netflix just really quick here, I just wanted to add that Netflix CEO Ted Sarandos said this about the Netflix special: trans people will simply have to deal with the special being on the platform.
That's
End
not
of
how
story.
it works. That's not how it works.
I just question that sort of viewpoint of, great, the pro-Hitler documentary that you've got up there. People who are disenfranchised around the world and affected by the treatment of the Nazis need to just
accept that we're never going to, we're never going to be unoppressed. We're always going to be in that oppressed category. We're not. Trans people rise up. It's time to take over the world. The asexuals will lead us.
Yes. Okay, new sticker. New sticker. The asexuals will lead us. All right, last person on my list, Piers Morgan. Possibly not as well known, I think, of our people on this list here in the States, but he really has a big following in the UK.
I'm sorry, the UK is just transphobic island right now. There's so many good trans creators who I love over there. We've talked about Jamie Dodger over here. He's amazing.
Yes.
But it's just a big floating island of transphobes at this point.
Thank you to our listeners that live there and are trans or allies, because we know how much, what that translates to is a lot of oppression and a lot of organizations and funding that are going to feel particularly targeting for you.
So thank you. Keep being strong. We love you. Love from the States.
So something I didn't know about Morgan as I was studying, as I was looking at this all up, I guess it feels like studying, doesn't it? He was actually the winner of Celebrity Apprentice in 2008. And
that was fucking crazy. We share scripts a little bit between each other for things like this. And when I saw that, I was like, I'm sorry, what?
And he was described by Mr. Donald Trump, who obviously was if you've never seen Celebrity Apprentice, he was the guy, the host. He described Piers Morgan as ruthless, arrogant, evil, and obnoxious. That's how he described the winner of the Celebrity Apprentice. So
it just tells you about where Trump himself is at. He is all of those descriptors.
Right. And they've said a lot of positive things about each other over the years. I wonder why, huh?
Crazy.
He's been a mainstay in British media since 1994, so people around the world really know him. He currently has a show. It's called Piers Morgan Uncensored. On the show, he has asked a trans guest about their genitals. He opened with that. Said human beings are male or female or not fit, whatever you fancy being. Said he identifies as trans slender. So people can't fat shame him for identifying as skinny. And finally tweeted this, poem. Speaking as a two-spirit penguin, I find it absolutely disgraceful that you have assigned a gender-neutral identity to a penguin chick when it may wish to identify itself as male or female.
What the fuck?
What were you on, Piers? That is incoherent.
As a two-spirit penguin... What are you saying? That's hitting so many bad buttons for me. Piers Morgan, you gotta stop, man.
Gotta stop.
Fuck.
So quickly here, before I pass it off to you for the main topic today, there are a couple honorable mentions. There are 2 celebrities that have a super long history of being really supportive of the LGBTQ community, and then decided to say some transphobic shit recently. And then, after being called out, they both came back and said, oh no, I swear we're not transphobic. This is taken out of context, but we'll let you figure that out. The first, I'm so sorry. I know there's going to be some people angry when I say this, but just bear with me. Bette Midler.
Uh-huh.
It's just a gut punch right in the LGBTQ, as Chappelle says, for Midler to say some awful stuff. She is absolutely a gay icon if you don't know who she is. Pride.com called her in 2016. There was a piece, 11 reasons why Bette Midler is a gay icon. However, evidently because trans people exist, she decided to tweet, they don't call us women anymore. They call us birthing people, menstruators, or people with vaginas. Don't let them erase you. And in a follow-up statement, Midler said, there's no intention of anything exclusionary or transphobic in what I said. It wasn't about that.
But it was. Inherently using inclusive language and trying to prevent inclusive language, as we will find out for our main topic, is in fact transphobic. Crazy.
Finally, you'll love the way that this starts off. Macy Gray, who as a phenomenal artist, really influential, especially in R&B. We just talked about Piers Morgan. So when I say this sentence, in an interview with Piers Morgan, Macy Gray said, you can imagine that the thing I'm going to say is not positive.
Yep.
What Gray said in that interview was, I will say this, and everyone's going to hate me. But as a woman, just because you go change your parts doesn't mean you a woman. Sorry.
As a trans woman who has, quote, now changed her parts, which is just a weird way of putting it.
That's a very strange, yeah.
I will agree. I have not become a woman. I was a woman before the surgery.
Yep.
What the fuck does that even mean?
I don't know. So her follow-up, I don't think she really is sorry, but what she said is, I have nothing but love for the LGBTQ plus and transgender community and have been a supporter since day one. My statement on Piers Morgan was grossly misunderstood.
How the fuck do you misunderstand that?
I'm just going to say out loud again what she said. Just because you go change your parts doesn't make you a woman. And she didn't mean that as, like you said, you're right. You were always a woman. That has nothing to do with it. This is very much targeted.
She didn't mean it like that. No, that is a trans woman saying that as like a joke. She's wrong. That's not how it works.
There you go. That's our 2022 Transphobic Celebrity Roundup. Hopefully it will be a kinder year.
Hopefully, although based on where things have been going in our world, I am not quite sure.
So what do you got for a main topic, speaking of which?
Yeah, so this topic is going to be a bit of a big one. And I just wanted to start off by saying it's going to be a speech-like format. We do have a script formatted with sources that will be posted in our episode description. If you would like to follow along, you are welcome to. Abortion.
Oh.
That's going to be our main topic today. It's a doozy. And I want everybody to know that I literally have spent the last couple days researching this intensely, hours of researching and script writing. If I get anything wrong, please let me know, and I will be sure to adjust the script post as we go along here.
For sure.
Abortion access and care has been a key topic in American politics and is one reason speculated for the success of Democrats in this latest midterm. In the light of that, I would like to talk about how abortion rights affect every marginalized group, not just cisgender women. First, though, a little history on abortions throughout the U.S. Abortions have been a major piece of American history from as early as 1600. Abortion was frequently practiced in North America during the period of 1600 to 1900. Many tribal societies knew how to induce abortions, and they used a variety of methods, including the use of blackroot and cedar root as abortifacient agents. This aligns with other medical texts and newspaper articles from the late 1700s, early 1800s, which described the herbal and medicinal abortions more frequently than surgical procedures, as surgical abortions were quite rare.
Yeah, that sounds very dangerous for where we were at medically at that time. So it makes sense that they would be using herbs instead.
Yeah, you don't really want to go in there at that time with the tools that they had.
Biggest issue would be you die of an infection. That any time that any surgery was being performed, that was the number one way to die.
Exactly.
I'm glad to hear that it was not a common practice.
Not super common. I do also like that in this article that I'm quoting, they said they used a variety of methods, including the use of blackroot and cedar root as abortifacient agents. Abortifacient just means it induces an abortion.
Right.
But they tell you what they used. And as we will see later in this article, when people don't have access to abortion care, they find ways to get abortions.
Yes.
Other ways.
Extremely unsafe ways.
Please do not, if you have the opportunity and access to, please get an abortion with a medical professional. Do not try to take black and cedar root to try and stop your abortion. Don't use anything online. Meet with a professional if you can.
Yeah. And part of the resources that we'll provide in the podcast description is sources of information that can help you find an abortion provider or what to do if you're in a state that might not have that kind of access.
Yes. So until the mid-1800s, abortions were legal and a completely normal part of AFAB people's healthcare. AFAB, for those of you who don't know or are newer to the vocabulary, is assigned female at birth. And I use that term a lot throughout this because when we're talking about this, a lot of the sources say women, and it's not just women's healthcare. It is women's healthcare, but it's also people who have a uterus, who have vaginas, who have etc. And so I use the term AFAB to be more inclusive. But, quote, common law allowed abortion proper to quickening, an archaic term for fetal movement that usually happens around 4 months of pregnancy. This was in the 1800s. As long as you were around 4 months before, 4 months after you became pregnant, you were totally okay to get an abortion. Unfortunately, this did not apply to enslaved black women, as they were seen as property, and many slave owners did not permit abortions. This did, however, lead to many abortions happening in secret, foreshadowing, which is just wrong. People should not need to feel like they need to get abortions in secret. Prior to the first abortion laws, the field was unregulated and mainly composed of skilled midwives, nurses, and other unlicensed women's healthcare providers. I'm saying women's in that instance because that is the exact wording that the source uses, and I don't know the exact intricacies of that. During this time, white men were generally not involved in the kind of GYN care that is practiced today. Rather, women, more than half of whom were black and some of whom were enslaved, accounted for the practitioners of AFAB reproductive health. Around the time of the Civil War, male physicians, policymakers, the Catholic Church, and others who wanted even more power and control over women and their bodies began a push for statewide government bans on abortion. By 1910, there was a nationwide ban on abortions in the US. Though, as is ever prevalent, wealthy white people were able to ignore the law, because of course they were. However, in 1960, 11 states had repealed their bans, and by 1973, the Supreme Court had established abortion as a legal right with Roe v. Wade, which is no longer in play in the United States because our current Supreme Court does not allow for precedents, and that is horrible.
You just think, like, we're talking about a span of 50 years there. Women's reproductive rights were protected for 50 years. It's just dumbfounding to me that
it's so dumb.
We have existed since 1776 as these United States, and only 50 years to this day of our history have allowed for the protection of women's reproductive rights.
It's horrifying to me. And I just want to come and say, rest in peace, Roe v. Wade. I really hope that we will see nationwide protections for abortion care again.
I think we will.
On top of the unfortunate news of Roe v. Wade being struck down, abortions were still more challenging than ever for the lowest of means when they were legalized in 1973. One of the laws that is specifically targeted to attack people of low means is the Hyde Amendment, which is still in play to this day. It is horrible. Unfortunately, it is way too deep of a topic for us to tackle in today's episode. If you're at all interested, Planned Parenthood has some incredible sources on the history and on the Hyde Amendment, both of which I've used a lot in this piece. It will be linked in our episode description, and I highly recommend you go and check it out. Planned Parenthood is amazing. Now, all the history showing institutional racism and sexism and all of that, how does it affect queer people, you might be asking? And how does it affect AMAB people or assigned male people at birth even more? I'll get there. Just calm down. It's okay. Abortion rights take a long time to get through.
I think you're making a point there that I think is important in this, and that is who has determined in the history of politics in our great country what women's reproductive health rights should be. And men have made those decisions.
It's men.
And then
it's white men. If
you go out on the street and you grab any individual man, and I would purport that if you grabbed any individual male identifying congressperson, you would not get a very accurate understanding of how a woman's body works. So the fact that those decisions are made without that understanding.
Andre and I talk about an article between each other quite often, and if I had thought about this discussion coming up, I would have sourced it, but there was an article that came out that said, I think it was around like 55% of cisgender women in straight relationships had rarely or never experienced an orgasm. And a lot of that has to do with men don't know where the fucking clit is. Ever. They never do. So cisgender men, if you're listening to this and you're straight and you'd like to learn where the clit is, we will link an anatomical diagram of what a woman's external genitalia looks like, and we will point out specifically where the clitoris is. Learn it and use that information wisely.
This is now the second episode where we are linking to models of women's genitalia. Because we did talk at length about boobs a couple episodes ago. So
we did, and that is one of my favorite episodes. Titties are great. So in 2019, a study of 18 and older transgender, non-binary, and gender-expansive people who were assigned female or intersex at birth was performed to determine what the needs of this population regarding reproductive healthcare might be. I know that was a lot. Let me break it down for you. It was a study of 18 and older people, so adults only, of transgender, non-binary, and gender-expansive people. I think we all know what that means, but gender-expansive can mean a lot of different things. Basically, anyone who doesn't identify as cisgender. People who were assigned female at birth, and people who were assigned intersex at birth. We've talked briefly on intersex people. I would love to dive into that episode a little bit more. However, I do want to bring in an expert on that, as it is not an area of expertise for myself, and I do not have that lived experience. So, I highly recommend you go and look at articles published by intersex people or scientists who spoke with intersex people about what intersex is. I don't think I could do a great job of describing it on the spot here. And the study was mainly trying to figure out what the best way to protect these trans and non-binary individuals would be while they are seeking reproductive health care. And do you want to know what the best way to protect trans and non-binary and gender-inclusive people would be?
The best way to protect them? No, I don't.
It is to use inclusive language everywhere.
Yes.
Everywhere, including medical records are the absolute worst. Clinics can be great, they can have inclusive language, but the medical records are still black and white, and it is the worst. Additionally to that, a lot of these trans people suggested that there be more privacy incorporated into and around these clinics, both figuratively and literally. A lot of these people who are going in for abortions are looking for discreet ways to get those abortions, because it is so stigmatized. It is so traumatizing that they don't want it to be out for the world to see. Please, adopt ways to better protect trans people who are seeking reproductive health care.
Yes.
Studies like this one improve the greater understanding and needs from the trans community, especially on topics that focus primarily on cis people, like abortion rights. But how do abortions affect AMAP people? And unfortunately, this is one area where I do not have any sources, and I will have to rely on my own thoughts and experiences as an AMAP person myself. And the reason I say that is because there is very little about how abortions affect trans women, and about how abortion care affect people who are born male at all.
Right.
And I just want to start out by saying I'm a woman, flat out. Anyone who tries to tell you differently is wrong and a liar. And I, as a woman, am in the group of people being targeted with restrictions to body and rights.
Yes.
When we're targeting abortion rights. I may not ever need an abortion specifically, but I am still subject to the secondary effects of abortion care and criminalization, such as stigma, higher rates of violence, and a path for more restrictions and criminalization on my body and what I can do with it.
And that, I think, leads to one of the biggest fears that we want to make sure people are aware of as abortion care legislation has been shifting to ban abortion. And that is that, and slippery slope theory is not a great argument, but there is a legitimate case to be made that this is just a first step in finding more ways to restrict everyone's reproductive care, because there's a lot of people in our country who believe that we shouldn't even be talking about sex and we shouldn't be thinking about it, and kids shouldn't know what sex is. And if a certain part of our population had their way, abortion is absolutely just the first step, the thing that they wanted to get done so that they could begin dismantling other kinds of rights that we have.
Yes. Additionally, on the things that affect me as a transgender AMAB person, I receive care from Planned Parenthood, and I'm sure a hell of a lot of other people do too. I've been to a Planned Parenthood clinic when there are more men in the clinic waiting room than there have been women the entire time I've been there. Men need Planned Parenthood too.
Yes.
And Planned Parenthood is who provides my care and hormones. They are also one of the biggest providers of abortions nationwide. And I am at risk of losing access to one of my necessary medical procedures to keep me alive. because Planned Parenthood is a major target of abortion restrictions.
Yes.
That is not okay. It's not okay that they are targeting Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood, who doesn't just provide abortions, but provides education, provides services of reproductive health care, like doing STD testing, STI testing, pap smears. So many things that are super important to reproductive health and just health in general. They are one of the biggest targets of abortion restrictions. Abortion rights are not just about the actual abortion procedures. They are about the empowerment of women, trans people, and literally anyone who gives a damn about a person's bodily autonomy. Everyone, especially trans and BIPOC individuals, are affected by abortion rights. So let's not fucking let old white men determine what is best for us, for you, when it comes to your medical and bodily decisions.
Yeah, don't let me decide what's best for you. Oh, wait. Whoops. Thank you. That was a huge amount of really important information.
Yes.
I don't hear this conversation a lot in the streams of information that you and I have at our fingertips. This is certainly something that it needs to be talked about more.
I am barely scratching the surface. When I tell you that I have been doing research for days and hours on end on this topic, I am not joking. I have been reading through sources and sources of open, publicly accessible resources. I want you all to know that, like, the research that we do on this podcast is meant to be accessible by everyone.
Yes.
Some of you might not understand all of the research studies that I'm reading and everything like that, but I want to make it digestible to you. And I want you to be able to go to these studies and look at the numbers that I have been looking at and say, hey, that's a cool statistic. I want to quote that. Or, hey, I don't know if I believe what she was saying about the history of abortion care.
Right.
And you can go to the Planned Parenthood website and read exactly the same sources that I was and see that I'm taking it directly from the people who know this best.
Absolutely.
We pride ourselves on making sure that everybody can follow along and listen to our podcast and enjoy it, and we want to make that an enjoyable and funny experience. But there are so many topics that are not funny when it comes to this platform and this trans topic and everything like that. Please, if this is not your favorite episode, I'm okay with that. But at least give it a listen once and share it at least once to somebody who needs to hear that white men do not control your body. Cam.
Yeah. I'm going to assume that if you've gotten to this point of the episode, you listened along. So thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Do you have a gender euphoria to share?
Thank God I do. We need something brighter after all of that. Our gender euphoria this week comes from Rachel McConkey. I really hope I'm saying your last name. And they say, I think I got gendered correctly last night, and if I'm forced to be honest, not sure how to process it. I wasn't trying to eat the pizza as I waited for the clothes to dry and clean at the laundromat. I had bought a large bag. Nope.
Girls.
Okay. I bought a large ladies' cut, and the girls were apparent under the word unionist. I went into Domino's and got a pizza. The 20-something behind me couldn't make his card work, so I bought it for him. I told him, pay it forward someday. He said, thanks, love. I really appreciate it. Was not expecting that. I'm very happy that this made you feel euphoric and that you were able to do something and hopefully help this person pay it forward someday. I always love when people pay it forward.
I'm all about acts of kindness.
Yes.
So important.
So thank you, and I'm so happy that you got gendered correctly, Rachel McConkey.
If you have questions about transitioning or supporting someone who is transitioning and you'd like us to talk about it on the show, please shoot an email to questions@transgendapod.com. Click the chat with us button on our website or DM us on social media. And I'm really excited. We're doing
also
something
super excited. Oh my God, it's going to be so much fun.
We're just so glad we've had a whole year now. This will be our year anniversary of recording this podcast, which means that in a couple of weeks, we're moving into season 2.
Woo!
And so we thought we would bring this community into one of our traditions. So we're calling this A Very Transgenda Holiday live stream. We'll be streaming everywhere we can, so watch for links as we get closer to the date, which is December 25th. I think you know what day that is for a lot of people. Noon to 6 p.m. U.S. Central Standard Time. And we're just going to be doing what we do on that day every year, which is our favorite holiday tradition of playing video games, making each other laugh, and forgetting it's the holidays.
Because fuck the holiday.
It's not an important time for us, and so we want to just share a safe place for you. So hop in anytime through the day. We'll be playing games. There are going to be some games that are audience participation games. We'll probably fire up Jackbox for a little while, so please pop on, and we'd love for you to be a part of that.
We will also have a couple of special guests throughout the day, so look out for that too. It'll be fun.
It's going to be a blast. And if you'd like to support the show, you can become a patron on our Patreon.
Shout out this week to Cassandra, a new Backstage Pass tier patron, and be sure to check out our episode description for links to resources on today's topics, especially Planned Parenthood, as their history played a huge piece in today's episode, and I could not have gotten this out on time if it weren't for the resources they have online.
Thanks for listening. I've been Cam.
I've been Anna.
And this has been The Transgenda.
Love you all, except the bigots.
Would you like to support our podcast? Well, you're in luck. We have a Patreon now. Just visit patreon.com/transgendapod, and for as little as $3 a month, you can support the content that we're creating. And for $20 a month, you can join our Sticker Club, which provides you with a monthly live stream, a shout out on the podcast, and a sticker every month from ourselves and creators that we adore. Again, just visit patreon.com/transgendapod, and thank you for all your support.